Ever looked at the face on a banknote and wondered, who is this person really? Most of the time they're national heroes, revered leaders, monarchs, the usual suspects. But what if I told you that Australia once put a convicted criminal on their $10 note? And not just any criminal, but a forger. This is the absolutely wild and true story of Francis Greenway, the man who went from convict to colonial architect, literally building the foundations of a new nation. Our story starts back in early 19th century England. Francis Greenway is a talented, ambitious, but maybe a little too clever for his own good architect. He's got skills, he's got vision, but his business is failing. He's facing bankruptcy. And in a moment of sheer desperation, he does something incredibly reckless. He forges a financial document. It's a bad move, a really bad move. He gets caught, and in 1812, he's tried at the Bristol Assizes. The verdict, guilty. The sentence, death. Imagine that. Your life, your career, everything you've worked for, about to be extinguished. But then a twist of fate. His sentence is commuted. He's not going to hang. Instead, he's going to be transported for 14 years to the brand new, far-flung penal colony of New South Wales, on the other side of the world. For most, this was a fate almost as bad as death, a one-way ticket to a harsh, unknown land. But for Francis Greenway, this was, bizarrely, the beginning of the greatest chapter of his life. He arrives in Sydney in 1814 aboard the convict ship General Hewitt. The settlement is, to be blunt, a bit of a mess. It's a jumble of shacks, crude buildings, and dusty tracks. It lacks order, it lacks grandeur, it lacks vision. But Greenway arrives with something unique. A letter of recommendation. Yes, a convict with a reference letter from none other than the former Admiral Arthur Phillip, the first governor of the colony. The current governor, Lachlan Macquarie, had grand ambitions. He didn't just want a penal colony. He wanted to build a proper, respectable society. He wanted to transform Sydney from a ramshackle outpost into a fine Georgian city. But he had a problem. He didn't have a professionally trained architect. Then this convict, Francis Greenway, practically lands on his doorstep. Macquarie decides to take a chance. He grants Greenway a ticket of leave, a form of parole, and puts him to work. And this is where the story truly takes off. Greenway, the disgraced forger, is unleashed. He's given the task of designing the colony's most important public buildings. And he doesn't just meet expectations, he shatters them. Think about the irony. A man convicted of faking documents is now tasked with creating the most real, solid, and enduring structures in the entire colony. He designs the lighthouse at South Head, a beacon of hope for incoming ships. He designs St. Matthew's Church in Windsor, a building so beautiful and well constructed it's still considered his masterpiece today. He designs the Hyde Park Barracks, a place to house other convicts, but he designs it with such elegance and proportion that it elevated the very idea of public architecture in Australia. St. James's Church, the Supreme Court, the stables for Government House, Greenway's fingerprints are all over the foundations of Sydney. He had a distinct style, elegant, symmetrical, classical, and he gave the fledgling colony a sense of permanence and dignity it desperately needed. Governor Macquarie was so impressed that in 1816, he appointed Francis Greenway as the official, acting civil architect and assistant engineer, basically the first colonial architect. And 2 years later, he was granted a full pardon. The convict had become the builder of a nation. Of course, the story isn't a complete fairy tale. Greenway was brilliant, but he was also notoriously difficult. He was arrogant, he argued with everyone, he constantly ran over budget, and he eventually had a massive falling out with Macquarie's successor, leading to his dismissal in 1822. His later years were marked by obscurity and financial struggle, but his legacy was, quite literally, set in stone. He proved that people could be more than their worst mistakes. He showed that a new society could be built on the principle of second chances, and that's why from 1966 to 1993, when Australians pulled a $10 note from their wallet, they saw the face of Francis Greenway, not a king, not a president, but a convict forger who, against all odds, used his tarnished genius to build a city and help shape a continent. And that's a story worth more than any $10 bill.